Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you are doing it to, I'm Bushka on Blitz. Great to have you with me here today. Quick bit of housekeeping. Thank you very much to all you humans who have sponsored the channel on Patreon. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to know that you have my back. If you haven't already had a look at that, there is a post up on the Facebook page, and there is a link at the top of the YouTube page with the little orange button on there. You go there, you can sponsor me for $1 per video, and it's only for instructional videos and reviews like this. It won't be for the I killed 7 tanks kind of videos. Speaking of Facebook, 300 plus likes on the page now, and it's really kicking along. Great bit of chat there and getting messages there from everyone. Basically, everything is going wonderfully well. You people are still coming along and listening to me chat like an idiot for a while. You're the real MVP. I hope you're ready to listen to me chat, because I have a lot to say about this tank, and it's quite complex. My relationship with this tank, I played it on test and I was overwhelmingly positive about it, because I felt it was unique, it was fun, it was something different, and it was good. I thought it was going to be overpowered, in fact, because of the small nature of the maps in Blitz and the fact that tanks wouldn't be able to hide from it. Ironically, in a twist I did not see coming, it's not overpowered at all. I think it's pretty crap. And the reason is because of the small nature of the maps in Blitz. You can't hide this tank. Its armor profile is quite weak, and I'm going to talk about the gun handling a lot, but its gun handling is quite possibly the worst I've come across in the game on a top tier tank anyway. It's definitely the worst in tier 10. It's horrific. And that leads to situations where this tank is quite often left on its own. And I've realised, and it's been quite interesting playing this tank and thinking about doing the review, it can't carry. And that's my real issue with it. If you're in an Object 140, an IS-4, an IS-7, an E3 even, all different kinds of tanks at tier 10, they can quite comfortably, given the situation, carry a game. They are able to manufacture their own kills, and through exploiting certain positives in their armor profiles and their weaponry, can create their own situations for destroying an enemy tank. The 183 is like a helpless newborn babe flapping its arms about, screaming for a feed, because it really isn't very good at manufacturing its own kills. And that's a huge issue when you're playing in tier 10 games. I had my worst ever loss streak in this tank. To put it in perspective, I was running with Aegon. Snake Eyes, Aegon, Chapo, Ricochet, all the boys from Storm, and some of the guys I run with outside of Storm. I'll run 300-400 games, and we'll do about 70 to 75% most weeks. This tank we lost 14 straight in. Now, we came up against some hard teams, some other guys who are, 70% win rate players, but usually you'll win a couple of those. It wasn't the case with this. It's maddeningly, excruciatingly frustrating to be in this tank, because good players, after the first initial joy is worn off, understand exactly how to take this thing apart. And it's easy. And the reason it's easy is because the gun handling is absolutely atrocious. Now, if you've got horrific gun handling, you'd probably expect to be paid off in armor, but the armor is not good either. A tier 8 heavy tank like the IS-3 can pen with APCR anywhere on this tank. It'll pen you through the turret, it'll pen you through the sides, through the front, everywhere. A tier 10 tank will take this thing apart in no time. So you're paying for basically a huge alpha, and you're paying for it with exceptionally poor gun handling and exceptionally poor armor. And originally the cries for this tank were that they'd nerfed the alpha and it had ruined the tank. The alpha's not the issue. The alpha is just not the issue. You do plenty of damage in this tank if you can get shots on. It's getting shots on. Most tanks, they will give a little bit here, take a little bit there. For instance, if you've got a really good aim time it's hard to find a tank with a really good aim time and really, really good precise dispersion. A tank like the Tortoise, the Tier 9 tank, is absolutely hilarious because it's got sub 2 second aim time and 0.31 dispersion with an incredible rate of fire. This thing, it also has very, very good gun depression. This tank is a rear-mounted tank with -5 degrees of gun depression. In actuality, it feels more like 0 degrees of gun depression because of the rear-mounted nature of the tank and the fact that the turret only traverses 30-odd degrees either side of your hull. You can't get shots on hull down. Every time you come to a small slope, and you'll see this in the video, the tank will rise up incrementally at the front, and it will mean that the gun, which is mounted at the rear, can't fire over the front of the tank. If you're in an IS-7, face hug this tank. Face hug it and watch them scream to death because they just literally cannot depress the gun far enough to fire anywhere except into your very, very strong turret. And likewise, if you're on the side of this tank in any kind of low profile tank, they're dead because they cannot depress the gun anywhere near far enough to hit you. Now, not only do you not have gun depression to get shots on, your dispersion is 0.40 and your aim time is 3.4 seconds. Even with a gun laying drive, it's over 3 seconds. It leads to situations where you literally cannot get shots off because the maps are so small and good players dart out, they fire and then pull back. And because your reload time is 18 odd seconds, you can't afford to fire a shot that you're not sure is going to hit. And with that aim time, that dispersion, that bad gun depression, the only way you can get shots that you're sure are going to hit is to sit still and exposed in view of very, very fast-firing low aim time tanks. And it's a recipe for disaster. This tank needs to be played from the back. It needs a sniping position where it's camouflaged and out of view. And unfortunately, that's a rare thing to find in Blitz, and that means that you're team reliant. You're reliant on tanks doing the spotting for you. And when things go pear-shaped and it's the end of the day and there's just you left, good luck. You can't spot things. You can't kill your own. You're really going to struggle. The ISU 152 is actually quite an apt comparison, but the ISU 152 has a huge advantage. Its turret is non-existent. It's got a forward-mounted gun, so it can actually fire over the top of objects and then retreat quickly behind them. This thing has 30 feet of unarmored crap at the front of the turret, which means to get a shot off, you have to go around the corner. It's so not good for side scraping, and you're going to see that in the video. In a pinch, you can side scrape it. It's your best option, but look, it's got wafer thin sides, and it's not flat. There's angles on it, and your deck's angled up, and your side of your turret's weak as buggery. It really, really struggles to carry. You will have some big games in it, and I've had 6K games in this galore, but I have had 0 games. Games where I literally could not get a shot to bear on the enemy. And I've had so many games where I've had opportunities to shoot, and if I take them, the gun just completely mishandles. At 0.40 dispersion and at massive aim time, the shell will literally fly anywhere. And once you've fired, you are 18 seconds out of the game, and a good player in a good medium will drive right up to you and bust a nut in your side so hard you'll be done and dusted and selling the tank. I've sold the tank. We lost 14 straight. If you don't think I sold the tank after that, you got another thing coming. And something I didn't actually mention, which is well worth mentioning, is not only is the tank very poorly armoured, it's enormous. You're literally the height of an E100, all but, and you can't turn the turret more than 30 degrees. So don't think about firing over the sides. Now, let's have a look at this 183mm L4 gun. The pen is not an issue. Solid pen on your AP. Alpha is not an issue. Solid alpha. Very, very solid alpha. Dispersion is 0.40. And your aim time is 3.40. That means you have an enormous bloom. And if you turn the turret on your gun, it will bloom up. This is an interesting thing. If you're moving the gun around on an E3, the bloom doesn't go like it does when you turn the turret on a 183. And when you turn the turret and the dispersion goes up, and you turn it just incrementally, left to right, to track a target, the bloom on is enormous on the reticle. And by that I mean the green circle where you aim goes just about to the size of the screen. It's enormous. And when you have to take a quick shot, it just doesn't happen. So you need to aim the weapon up. But the thing's camo is rubbish. And it's big as a house. So if you're aiming the thing up and any tank from tier 8 and up has a look at you, if they're willing to fire at you, they will pen you. It's got to be at the back. There are certain spots on certain maps where it can work, but you need to be in a platoon with a big heavy tank. And even then, if there's any kind of mishap or shots from the right or the left, I mean, the turret on this thing is a joke. It literally doesn't turn far enough to make it worthwhile. And the gun depression that you can get from turning to the sides with tanks like the T28 Proto and the E4 is non-existent here. A lot of tanks have more gun depression on their sides, and that's fine. And you can then hide the bottom of your chassis and fire over hills that way. But because this only goes 30 degrees right to left, you can't turn it on the side and get extra gun depression. It just doesn't have a lot of positives. So we're going to go and have a look at the armor now, because I feel like I've given it a fair dubbing and drubbing on the gun front, and it's time to get stuck into the armor. Now, this is looking at it from the M103's 120mm. The theory behind this tank is pretty sound. It's got a strong-ish turret. The problem is that in Blitz, premium ammo gets slung an awful lot, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's there for a reason, and people use it. So what I want to illustrate, though, is that Tier 8 tanks, that's AP from an E5, right? That's heat from an E5. Anytime they can see any part of your tank, you are going to get hit. Now, you can't hide a tank that big. It's nearly as big as an E100 in terms of height and profile from the side. The issue is that you will see tier 8s. Now, the tier 8s can pen you from the front with APCR, even on a low pen tank like the IS-3 with the BL-9, the Russian gun. They can pen you with APCR very, very easily, but from the sides, you are green to AP from everyone. You've got under 80mm of armour on your rear. The sides of your turret only rotate 30 degrees, so it's very hard to find a position where you can hide that enormous chassis and the turret. Now, you do have lots of spaced or tracks on it, but they're only 5mm skirts, and you can see it's just not enough to take shots off. There's not enough of an armour profile. And it's the length and the build of the tank that's the issue. Look at the gun depression. That's with -5 degrees from the side. And that's on a dead flat surface. It's really hard to find a dead flat surface where you're above someone else and you've got cover on that lower glacis. So, all in all, very difficult. Now, I'm going to show you what I mean. This is on test server, so I've got the chance. Now, this is a very, 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 very gentle slope. It's not a mound that will really hide you anywhere. And you can see that to shoot, once we move up even towards the top of the slope to get into a firing position, look at the gun. It doesn't depress to the other side. It's pointing halfway up that building in front of us. It's an impossible shot to take. Anyone on the other side of this very, very gentle slope is safe as houses, because you just can't get the gun down. I'm going to have a look at some gameplay. This is, first I'm going to illustrate the issues, then I'm going to show you some games. And the games are worth watching because when it works, oh my lordy, it's a lovely tank. It's an amazing tank when it works. But this was one of the first games I played in this thing, and on Oasis Palms. And I know there's a sniper position up here, so I'm rolling across trying to find a spot where I can get the gun to bear on enemy targets without exposing the entirety of my tank. And it's just not possible. It isn't. I've moved up. I'll be spotted pretty quickly. There's no shots. You're big as a house. Everyone's going to see you. That E5 spotted me. I've got to pull back. There's no way around it. So I can't get shots in there. And I've got to support Aegon. He's in the IS-7. Now we win this game, we win it very, very handily, but it's no thanks to me. And this is exploring and finding out what a new tank can do. But the issue is, the maps don't cater for this tank. You have to move into town to get shots in this tank, because it's just too bloody big. And you can see straight away, trying to expose the tank around the corner there to get shots doesn't work. You're showing too much of that front, so you side scrape off. Now I'm at a pretty flat angle here. Goes nowhere near the target, still pens me straight through the side of the turret. And that's at an angle. I mean, that's a pretty flat angle. That's trying to side scrape, but against tier 10 tanks, and you can see how hungry they are for another shot. I pull back. You've got to go so far back to side scrape, still gets me straight through. Now they're firing APCR and heat. I turn around to try and get the shot. You've got to take a quick shot. Look at the horrible gun handling on it. There's no chance to snapshot that. I realise that there is no chance for me to be any kind of contributor there, so I'm just backing the hell out, getting all the way back. I've lost all my hit points. I've taken quick shots and it's just ineffective. I've tried to side scrape, ineffective. So I back out, go around the building, and I'm going to move down to the right hand side. There's nothing for me there. Obviously the carcass of a dead tank blocks me off. No worries. I've been spotted anyway. There's a Tiger 2 down here. I'm going to have a look at him, because I just can't. And you see how there's a gentle slope up to a lot of these buildings? That means if you side scrape off the building, you're such a long tank that the gun will just get thrown all the way back. It won't be able to depress forward, and even if you can get the angle right for your side scrape, it won't matter. Now look how long it takes me to try and aim a shot up on this Tiger 2. Now it's not the easiest of shots. That's not me hitting him. That miss. And yeah. Take a quick look at the scoreboard. 0 damage. Whole lot of pain. This T-44 spotted me up. This game was so frustrating. This Comet here, I'm going to show you what I mean. I'm not moving the chassis of the tank, right, when I take this shot. I am moving the turret to track. Look at the bloom. Look how big the bloom is on that thing. I'm only going to get a look at it. Nowhere near it. And those snapshots that you make in 99 out of 100 other tanks are so impossible to make in this tank. And we let the reticle settle as much as possible. Nowhere near it. And that's at near range. That's close. That is not far. And then you're out of action for another 18 seconds. And you cannot get gun depression down, because we're on a tiny slight slope. We can't see down in the cap circle till we move up to that rock there. The T-62A moves up now. There's a 62A on the right. I'm going to get a clear shot at him, but I can't hit him. I cannot take the shot because the gun is... This is with a gun laying drive. Can't afford to waste the shot, because if I fire that, it's all over. Watch this. Straight underneath him. No chance. We hit adrenaline because we don't have a choice. We've got to get some shots in here. They're going to win this on a cap. We've completely missed the Comet. We've completely missed the T-44. And we can't hang around to let the reticle set. They'll just shoot us. And you can see, you get hit from everywhere. You just can't do anything about it. Look at the gun depression. You've got to move forward and expose that massive big nose to get shots. And you can't stay there. You'll just get hit. So we move around in the T-62. Can't fire, can't fire, can't fire. Every time you move the turret, the reticle bloom is amazing. It's massive. I can't do much here to help that Ferdinand. He's dead. Aegon's up top on the E100. You can't take any of these shots. If you do, I literally have to wait till he's stock still before I can get a shot off. Now, the problem here is because of the reload time, I've had to use, and this is another thing, I've had to use that alpha to do a shot. It could do another 500 alpha on top of that, but I've had to use that alpha for a shot in the 62A. There's 20 seconds left on the cap. It's a T-44 smashing me frontally. I'm not going to be reloaded in time to reset this cap. If I go out there, I'll get hit. Can't get the gun down from here. Got to move forward and expose myself to do it. And it's too late. And that's this tank in a nutshell. It then hits that. Then hits that. You'll see Agon in the E100 next to me. Bumps me off. Stops me just for a sec. But have a look. We're massive. We are going to get drilled from the side all the way up here because we can't rotate our tank to the left to actually stop. See, an E100 could drive up here, rotate the turret to the left as Agon is doing now, and he can't be penned from the left because of the angle. And it's a good play by Ag there. You can see he's unpennable from the left. We can't. We try to do that, and it turns our tank to the left. We can't progress forward and protect the turret. So we move forward, and we get hit again. You're as big as a house. We're half dead. We've got to the top, and we can't do anything up here either, team, because we have no gun depression. The only way we can actually get shots in is to move to the top of the hill, and you can't do that. Anyone coming over the top is going to pen us. It's a 3.4 second aim time. It's a great map if you had a position to snipe from, behind the lines that was safe from flank covers, but there aren't many maps like that. It's a very frustrating. I don't do negative reviews as a rule. This is by far the most negative review I've done, and it's because the tank is bloody terrible. It really is. It needs to be perfectly positioned. And you'll see here, when the shots hit, it is glorious. I mean, it just doesn't happen often enough. Look at that. Look at the instant damage. One shot on a Tiger 2 with Hesh in the side causing a fire, and you're a massive caliber gun. So you were going to do that because you will hit modules and just wreck them. But these shots happen so rarely. So it's 2 shots for 2 kills. Now we do bugger all the rest of this match. But that's what it can do when they hit. If you had a smaller aim time, or if the dispersion was better, the tank would be fixed. They won't do it for a while though. It usually takes them ages after they get stats. And fair play, because that's how it should be. Here, look at this. You get a chance to let the reticle go all the way to the bottom. We've done 3 shots for about 4,000 damage, and I think that could be the entire match for us. I don't know if we do anything else the rest of the way through here. In fact, we don't do any more damage. We've done 4,200 damage with 3 shots, which is incredible. But you can see how useless the tank is once it's spotted. If you're not in a sniper position like that, where you've got cover and people on both flanks and a field of fire, you're cactus, because it's enormous. And you're going to see in a second just how bloody frustrating it can be. An Object 140 turns up, we're on a reload, and he's just leaning out and firing at us because we can't do anything about that. He's way too quick. We missed 1 shot. And he didn't do anything amazing. It's just what happens with this tank. So we did 3 shots, and 3 shots will net you a massive amount of damage. And we more or less destroyed their flank attack. 4,200 damage. It's a frustrating machine, but it's glorious when it works. And you can see here, I've pushed flank again with Agon running this wonderful E100. Oh no, I'm not with Agon in this one. This is a solo one. The reason I'm pushing flank here is it's a silly thing to do in this tank. But if you look where the green spots are, they're both in front of me. There's tanks on my right, flanks on my left. You will get, if you drive this thing, and don't let me put you off, if you're desperate to drive it, drive it. But you need to know 2 things. Always be aware, not just of where the enemy is, but where your cover is. And if it seems stupid sometimes, but you need to go where there are flanks on your right, tanks on your right, tanks on your left, and you make a living out of it. And you have to let that reticle get down, because sometimes it'll hit, but more often than not, it just won't. And if they start looking at you, go and find someone else. Look at it. You will get everything that gets fired at you just about is going to go through. We got very lucky there. We only got hit in the trap. Look at the reticle. That shot does not hit 9 times out of 10. On a lot of tanks, it's a great shot to take. This thing, it's just not. And you'll see I'm letting tanks go in front of me all the time, just using them all the time. You will make your living being a vampire in this tank. It's the only way to do it. You have to wait for your team to move forward. You use their hit points to give you damage. That's all there is to it. You get behind big tanks, you use their hit points and their muscle, and you put damage into them. Now I've driven past this Jagdpanzer E100. There you go. Didn't even bother firing. There's the old IS-7. Now your Pen IS-7s from the front, these shots that we're hitting here are BS. They do not hit normally. But when they do, the tank is like a force of nature. It rolls flanks. It destroys advances. If you could just lower the aim time or lower the dispersion to a reasonable amount, it'd be viable. As it is, look, you can get a good... If you platoon every game with this and you have good players and you play sensibly, you can keep it up around 60 to 70% win rate, I guess. But you can do that with anything tank. It's the hardest tank I find to win with. And yeah, the frustration factor, it's just not worth the time. And it makes you wary of taking shots. It's funny, isn't it? Like that, normally you take that shot all day, every day, but you just want to make sure that you absolutely have the shot before you fire, because if it misses, they're getting 2 shots in on you. Just about every tank in the game is getting 2 shots in on you after you miss. So that's 2 standard good games. 4K is just 3 shots. You'll see there, 4,200. Let's have a look at a couple of 6K plus games. And this one will show you, this tank is a ball terror. It's a heartbreaker. Aegon, I think, lags out or has to take a phone call in the middle of this one, which is unfortunate. But you'll note again where I am. All your best games in this tank will happen when you have teammates in front of you to use their hit points. You're like a leech. You're screaming damage off them using their hit points. But you just don't have many other options. And you can see, just waiting. Look how long. That 3 seconds is an eternity. But then you move the turret and you're back to full bloom again. It's a really, really, really frustrating thing. But we've got Aegon in front of us. So there's going to be an opportunity here to make some moolah, do some damage. And to show you the tank with its wings out, soaring high, having a great time. There's the T-44. T-44s are beautiful tanks. You will hesh them all over the place, and they're a really prevalent tank, and you'll one-shot a lot of them. And that's great, and that's hilarious and great fun. But you can't carry. I mean, even as I'm one-shotting T-44s, you can hear me, you just can't carry. You're not going to be the guy that carries the game. Now, HE for 373... it's not much of a trade-off. That's a premium HE shell. And I forgot to mention the ammo loadout in this tank. It's abysmal. You've got 12 shells. You'll have games where it will literally come down. If you take a couple of speculator shots and you see a lot of action, you'll run out of ammunition. There's not many tanks in the game that you can say that about, but you'll come down to games where you've got 1 or 2 shells left. I mean, when it's working, when it's firing, you're just a force of nature. But Aegon's out. The rest of the team's falling to bits. They're in the cap circle. There's 2 guys in front of me. There's a TD on my right, an ISU 152, and he's got his hands full over there. So if they're not coming out into my field of view here, I don't have any options. You can't get close to the enemy when you have a 20-second reload. It just doesn't work. you can't take speculative shots. And you see, we're doing our best and we're making smart decisions and we're prioritising our targets. But you're alone and there's 4 tanks still to go. One of them's a T95 and I mean, I'm not sure about you, but you can't do much. That's a real speculator, that one. And it didn't pay off. And you now got 3 tanks in front of you and 1 on your right. You know there's a T28 prototype there. That's what took out the ICU-152. Looking at my ammo, got 1 Hess shell left. T95 is the one that's going to be the worry. He'll just march up here comfortably. But you've got to take shots where they're at. Ammo rack the Tiger, because you've got an enormous caliber gun. And then this IS-7 is always going to be strife. And there's a proto. This is what I'm talking about. Once you're on your own, you cannot manufacture successful engagements. Your armor profile just isn't strong enough. We're in a horrible spot now, and we're backing up, giving ourselves ground, hoping that we can get a shot on someone to save the day. That proto's nailing us. You can see you can get the lower glacis to the 95, and that's fine. But they're coming round at us now. We'll get a lucky bounce. You're just backing around a hill. I mean, it's not rocket science. He's just hoping that they're bad like that and they take bad shots. Yeah. And you've got to drive forward because you're just not quick enough to get away. You nearly get away, but there you go. Too big a reload, too slow a tank, too poor an armour profile. And we got 2 one-shot kills there, that T-44 and that Tiger 2. We did over 6k damage, but it was not enough. 6,500 damage. Unfortunately, just couldn't carry the day. Here we go, last game. You can see it's glorious when it works. You're getting these one-shot kills, you're setting people on fire, you're ammo racking, because you've got a 183mm shell. That's a big, big shell. And that modules get smashed up by this tank. I'm just not happy with it. I just don't believe it's a fun playstyle. It's a frustrating playstyle. And I don't think they'll change it for a while yet because they'll need to see stats, and they're good like that. Wargaming takes time. They balance based on the overall game stats, not just on people who can actually play the tank. And you can see the actual damage of the tank, the AP shells and the 310 pen, 300mm of penetration are great and, you know, brilliant. When you get shots on, just a treat. And you'll note all the good games are with tanks in front of me to take the damage and to spot targets. But that's just not the case in public games, is it? I mean, we all know you're going to get stuck in situations in this game where you're not going to have tanks in front of you. And they'll all bugger off, or they're all mediums, or everyone camps. And you're useless. You're next to useless. Anyway, I'll stop whinging. This is the last game, so that's all you've got to put up with. And it's hard to whinge when you've just had 2 shots for about 1,800 damage. So let's see what it can do when it's given free rein. Now you see me very, very worried here because that Tiger 2 is more than a one-shot. And I can't rely on ammo racking or setting him on fire. It's only when I see that he's dropped down to under a one-shot that I start moving forward. And I'm carefully counting tanks here. I can see 4 tanks on screen. We're missing 1. And that's important. I'm willing to trade a shot to get the kill, but I'm trying to bait it out of him. Because it's going to take me a shot to get over there. Here we go. If he moves down behind that dune, got the trap, but that's fine. We'll take that, and that'll give us the kill. Well worth it. All 4 targets are visible. That's fine and dandy. We're moving up into a position now to successfully help Aig. Aig's holding them there, and we're just going to put shots into the side. We're taking our time because there's nothing worse than having great shots and screwing it. And that IS-7 is a very low roll. That's another frustrating thing with this tank, is when you actually There's Thongsoy BC. I think we actually fought him in the IS-7 plat on Port Bay just before. Look at that. I don't really want to fire that. It's 20 hit points on an 18-second reload, but you've got to take the kill. That's a really frustrating thing. That's like doing, you know, no damage. And at that shell, if you're running premium Hesh, and you have to run premium because you don't have enough of an ammo loadout to run normal Hesh. If you're running premium shells, then that shot there cost us, I think, about 8k to do that 20 hit points worth of damage. You factor the maths on that one, that ain't fun. So we've actually had our way here. We've gone through most of our AP quite successfully. Only got 2 rounds of that left, and we're now into the ST1. You can see, even though we're finding hull down positions like this, and this is quite a rare spot where you can reverse up the hill, you're still going to get penned. The turret's just not strong enough. And there's the old IS-3. Now IS-3s you can frontally nail with Hesh, which is great fun. And again, smashing that ST1. And he's nailed our turret every time. It's such a massive, horrific target. But still, we're 3 kills to the good, taken out an IS-7 plat, and we've done a massive amount of damage. When this tank fires, it's a beautiful tank, and it could be a fun, beautiful tank. I find it terrible, and some of you may disagree. That's great. Each to their own. In my train of thought, the gun handling is just absolutely horrific and not worth rolling forward. I wish it was better, and I think they will buff it. I think they'll drop the aim time personally. I think they'll probably drop it to 2.9 seconds. And there's nearly 7,000 damage there with a huge carry. The tank can do it when it needs to do it. Anyway, it's with a heavy heart that I give you that one, because I really had high hopes for that tank, and I thought it could be quite overpowered. But for my money, it's one of the worst tanks in Tier 10, and I actually feel quite comfortable when I see one on the opposition team list, because I know I can nearly ignore the tank if I play in a certain manner. And that's a sad thing, because it's a unique tank, and it could be something really special in the game. And I just think that they've balanced it very poorly when they've brought it over to Blitz. They've just nerfed the alpha damage on it, where they should have actually buffed the gun handling stats and nerfed the alpha even a touch more. I would have been fine with that. It benefits from a massive map. It benefits from the ability to snipe and have big reloads and stay out of sight. And it is extremely detrimental to have this tank on small maps versus a lot. Like, there's a high population of medium tank drivers out there, especially at Tier 10, who drive very quick, low-profile medium tanks with very fast aim times. And you are food for the mill. You really are grist for the mill there. Rough tank to fight versus T62s, Object 140s, FV215s. You are a terrible snapshot tank. You struggle tremendously mobility-wise versus those tanks, and your camouflage is negligible. So unless there's an armor buff, which they won't do, they generally don't buff armor. I think there might be a dispersion on traverse buff to this, or an aim time buff in the future. But as of right now, patch 2.2, my recommendation is stick with the Tortoise. The Tier 9, I would rather drive the Tortoise in any match than this tank. The Tortoise has better DPM, it has better accuracy, much better gun depression, much better gun handling stats, and incredibly good dispersion. Yeah. So, I'm Bushka on Blitz. As usual, you have been a wonderful crowd. Stick around, there's some official stuff coming down the pipe very, very soon, which I think you'll enjoy. There is a lot more coming. I've got some map tactic videos coming up. I apologise that this couldn't be a happier review. I'm really a bit sad about it. I don't like the tank. I sold it for what it's worth. That's my take. I'm Bushka on Blitz. You've been lovely. Have a great day and stay safe on the battlefield.